Hello, my loves, and welcome back to the next episode of the Ages of Chaos. And once again, we're doing one of the Traitor Legions in Codex Chaos Space Marines 9.0. One of those Traitor Legions that's changed a hell of a lot since its original inception, the Alpha Legion. My God, the Alpha Legion. The Alpha Legion were mentioned way back when in the Realms of Chaos days, but like most of the sort of tertiary or undivided legions, they were given short shrift. There was one mention of them in one little piece of artwork where a banner of theirs was depicted, and it was like this squatting gremlin creature that was all twisted up on itself. Obviously, that doesn't apply anymore. They've changed a lot. They were originally fleshed out, as most of the legions were, in the Second Ed Chaos Codex, which tried to give each of the legions more of their own character, more of their own modus operandi, outside of the influence of the Chaos Powers. They really tried with the Second Ed Chaos Codex to make the Traitor Legions their own entities, with influence from the Chaos Powers, but the influence is complex, and with the Alpha Legion it's more complex than anywhere. Back then, they were introduced as the 20th, and therefore the last of the Traitor Legions to be discovered, and their whole character was based on their attempts to exemplify themselves amongst the older legions. Their Primarch wasn't even mentioned back then. There was no mention of Alfarius back then. And they weren't really given very much. They were the youngest Traitor Legion. They had this proclivity for guerrilla war, saboteur tactics, and subterfuge. They often didn't face their enemies head on. They engaged in, as I say, sabotage and working behind enemy lines, undermining the enemy before they faced them. But that was about it, really. There wasn't really much else to them other than a very nice, very bright blue and silver colour scheme. And it wasn't really until the Horus Heresy books when everything bloody changed. Everything changed. Not only did we get mention of Alfarius as their Primarch now, but something else happened as well. It was revealed that they don't just have one Primarch. Their Primarchs are twins. They have two, Alfarius and Omegon. Not only that, but Dan Abner in the novel Legion completely rewrote them, and I mean completely rewrote them. They became this incredible mystery in the 40k universe in terms of their ideologies, their motivations, as mysterious and unknowable, in fact, as, for example, Cypher and the Fallen. In Legion, it's relayed that the Alpha Legion know exactly what's going on with regards to the heresy, and with regards to the wider metaphysics of chaos. They're introduced to it by a cohort of aliens called the Cabal. And the Cabal informed them that the only way of defeating chaos is with the destruction of the material universe, and in fact, the death of every conscious creature within it. Humanity, the Eldari, all of those creatures that have imaginations and that have drives. The only way of undoing chaos is by allowing them to die, by allowing themselves to burn themselves out. And the Cabal claim that will come with Horus's victory. Horus's victory is not necessarily a good thing for the Chaos Powers. They'll enjoy a period of resurgence as chaos swamps the universe, but it will eventually burn itself out. That actually isn't what the Chaos Powers want. It isn't what Lorgar wants. What Lorgar and the Chaos Powers want is for Horus to be a sacrifice, for him to die, as in fact he does, and that will usher in the next 10,000 years of chaos fermenting it within the material universe, feeding the chaos gods and expanding their influence without burning out chaos itself. And that is what the Alpha Legion initially seemed to be trying to do. They join Horus to defeat Horus. They're actually loyal to the original vision of the Emperor. In the sense that they want chaos to be ultimately defeated, but the way they want to do it is not the way the Emperor initially envisioned. They are trying to eradicate everything, to have chaos effectively burn itself out. However, as is the case with the Alpha Legion, it's very hard to tell whether that is still true. What happens is, because they are so consumed by conspiracy and internal schisms and manipulations and differing modus operandi, you start to get a splintering within the Legion. So some become wholly dedicated to chaos, some stay loyal to the original vision of the Emperor, some stay loyalist to a certain degree, some are still trying to pursue that original vision of the Cabal, and there are entire fractures and schisms within the Alpha Legion itself. And it's hard to tell, because of the nature of the Alpha Legion, it's hard to tell whether those schisms and fractures are actually orchestrated by the high command of the Legion. It's very difficult to tell, even now, whether they even have anything like an overarching council or authority, or whether it just consists of a fractured Legion, all of whose warbands are pursuing their own highly elaborate, contradictory agendas. It's very, very difficult to tell, and it's impossible to know. It's impossible to know because they are everywhere. The Alpha Legion, following the heresy, unlike, say, the Sons of Horus, who were so dedicated to their Primarch that when he died they went mad and basically retreated from Terra, the Alpha Legion don't give a shit about that. They were conditioned from the very beginning to operate independently without their Primarch. In fact, to the point whereby they were given equal status of their Primarch. Because of the way Alpharius and Omegon operated, it's impossible to tell whether they are still alive or dead. There are differing accounts as to whether they die or not. So, originally, in their Index Astartes article, Alpharius is killed by Robert Guilliman, but it's impossible to tell whether it was Alpharius, because he is not like a normal Primarch. He's not as big, he's not as imposing, and he can mask himself. He can appear as just another legionary. As a result, what they used to do was have other legionaries operate as the Primarchs at any given point, so that the Primarch themselves wouldn't be assassinated or murdered or targeted. So it may be that Alpharius was killed by Robert Guilliman, or by Rogel Dawn on Pluto. We don't know. There are two differing accounts. Or it may be that neither of them were, and that Alpharius is still out there. The same is true of Omegon. They might still be operating together. They might be operating differing agendas. They may be conflicting with one another. We just don't know. In the recent novel, spoilers by the way, guys, in the recent novel Alpharius, by I believe Nick Kime, or was it Chris Wright? I'm not sure. It's one of them. No, it's not actually. No. It's by the same guy who wrote the Red Corsairs book, Huron Blackheart. Can't remember at the moment. I'll have to look that up. But in that novel, it's actually, I mean, this is a massive spoiler, not just for the Alpha Legion, but for the wider lore. This changes a lot, so be warned. It's revealed that they're not the last Legion to be discovered. They're not the 20th Legion. In fact, they were the first. They were the very first. When the Primarchs were spirited away, Alpharius was dropped literally on the Emperor's doorstep, on a planet within the Sol system, and he rediscovered him immediately. And it was the Emperor's will that Alpharius kept himself hidden from everyone. The only people who know are Malcador and the Emperor, and that's it. That is it. And he operates as the Emperor's agent amongst all the other organizations of the Imperium, including the other legions. So Alpharius is present, often masquerading as a member out of one of those legions at key points in Imperial history, like when the Primarchs are rediscovered, when key battles are fought. They're often won. Some of the most significant battles in the early Great Crusade are won because the Alpha Legion are operating behind the scenes and making sure that things play out in a certain way, in order to keep an eye on the other Primarchs, but also manipulate them down roads that the Emperor wants them to travel, you see. Alpharius is the Emperor's secret weapon, and it's absolutely wonderful, isn't it? Really cool. And it also, obviously, the Alpha Legion. Alpha, the first. Alpharius, the first. Originally, it was thought that was just like a matter of hubris. It's like the Legion trying to puff up their chests in the midst of the older legions. It's not true. They were discovered first, and their whole discovery by Horus late into the Great Crusade was all it's a masquerade, it's a charade, it's not real, and it's masterminded by the Emperor and by Alpharius. It's amazing, right? As to where they are now, who can say? Who can say? They are still operating their guerrilla war, but for what? It's almost impossible to tell, because there are so many schisms in both ideology, loyalty, organisation within the Legion itself. The different war bands of the Alpha Legion each have their own agendas, and whether they still have an overarching agenda, whether they still have something that they're working towards, some grand master plan, who knows? Who knows if they're even still organised anymore? Nobody does, and that's one of the great things about the Alpha Legion. If you're playing an Alpha Legion warband, you're playing masters of subterfuge and subtlety that are so consumed by that ideology that they often don't even realise why they're operating themselves, or whether why they think they're operating is why they actually are operating. It's entirely possible they're being manipulated by some higher power or something. It's utterly brilliant. I mean, you've got to love the rewriting of the Alpha Legion is magnificent. It makes them so interesting compared to what they were. Now, in terms of how they manifest in the game, their Legion trait, Masters of Duplicity, is one of the more situational ones. It's not as outstandingly brilliant as the Iron Warriors trait, or as the Creations of Bile trait, or even as the Black Legions, but it is very good, and it does force you to... It's one of those traits that's very role-playing in nature. It forces you to play in a particular way. So the first part, each time a ranged attack targets a unit with this trait, if the attacker is more than 12 inches away, subtract 1 from the attack's hit roll. If the target unit contains models with a wounds characteristic of 10 or more, the attacker must be more than 18 inches away for this benefit to apply. So it forces you to play at more of a distance. In the early game, you are going to be wanting to you're going to be wanting to take advantage of that. It's very good against armies that rely on very long range, like the Tau, the Drukhari, and the Eldari, and the Astra Militaria. Very, very good against them, in fact. And it means that you're going to be wanting to maneuver your units into positions where they are going to be camouflaged, they're going to be in ideal firing positions, just like the Alpha Legion do. It's very good. Second part, units with this trait are eligible to perform an action or declare a charge in a turn in which they fell back. If a unit with this trait declares a charge while it is performing an action, that action is still failed. That's really good. That's really good. That gives them a lot of leeway and a lot of maneuverability within mission scenarios, and it's actually a lot better than most people seem to think it is. It's not an aggressive trait like a lot of the others are. It's a trait that enables you to achieve objectives, and within 9th Ed, that's really good. It makes your units very maneuverable and very versatile. It means if they're camped out on an objective, they can still do stuff, and it means you can perform feints, so you can fall back from a combat that you don't want to be fighting and still fire or declare a charge after. It's very good. It's very, very good. Their secondary objective, infiltrate and subvert. So you use guile and cunning to infiltrate enemy positions that they foolishly think are safe. Let them discover that all crucial targets behind their front lines have already been secured and now serve only the Alpha Legion. If you select this objective, Alpha Legion infantry units from your army can attempt the following action. Subvert. One Alpha Legion infantry unit, excluding character units from your army, can start to perform this action at the end of your movement phase if it is wholly within 6 inches of your opponent's deployment zone. The action is completed at the end of your next command phase, provided the unit attempting it is still wholly within 6 inches of your opponent's deployment zone. If completed, if the unit that performed the action is in range of an objective marker, roll 1 dice 6 to see if that objective marker has been subverted. If that unit was a cultist's unit, that objective marker is subverted on a 5+, otherwise that objective marker is subverted on a 3+. Enemy units can never control objective markers that have been subverted, and they can can never perform actions while they are in range of any objective markers that have been subverted. Each time a unit from your army completes this action, secure 3 victory points. Score 4 victory points instead if that unit completed this action while wholly within your opponent's deployment zone. This is excellent. This is really good. You are going to be wanting to get this. To being able to control objectives completely, or at least deny your enemy from ever taking them in the battle, is mad. It's absolutely mad. In a game like Ninth Ed really does rely on you taking objectives, it relies on you completing missions. This actively prevents the enemy from being able to do it for the duration of the battle. You've got to jump through a lot of hoops to do it, to actively subvert an objective, but doing it is amazing. You're only going to want to do it 1 or 2 times, and it's going to make, in many scenarios, it is going to make the achieving the objectives for the enemy very difficult indeed. It's bloody brilliant, actually. Infiltrate and subvert, it's very good. And that is something I've noticed about the Alpha Legion. They are one of those legions that works best with regards to the scenario and the mission being played. That's where their strengths lie. They're more subtle than a lot of the other traitor legions. They aren't as like as overtly whiz bang, oh wow, how, you know, they're not as directly aggressive as like the Emperor's Children are, for example, or the Iron Warriors. It's all about the missions. Their warlord traits are superb, by the way. Number 1, I am Alfarius. The Alpha Legion are experts in the art of deception, and none are more so than this warlord. After nominating this model to be your warlord, randomly determine 1 additional warlord trait for them, re-rolling duplicate results from a warlord trait table of your choice that this model has access to. So they immediately gain another warlord trait, which makes them much more powerful. It makes them much more interesting. The second part is really where it's all at, though. If this warlord is destroyed, you can immediately select 1 other Alpha Legion character model from your army that does not have a warlord trait, and select a warlord trait for that model to gain. This must be a warlord trait no other model from your army has. It must be one that model can have, and it cannot be I am Alfarius, obviously. Until the end of the battle, that model counts as your warlord for all rules purposes. If any mission, objective, secondary objective, or agenda rules are triggered when your warlord is destroyed, those rules are not triggered until this new warlord is destroyed. You see how good it is? In certain scenarios, once again, it makes achieving the objectives for the enemy much more difficult. Assassination, for example, it's going to make it near impossible under most scenarios for them to achieve that in a single turn. It's really, really good. Very characterful. I like that a lot. Number 2, Clandestine. This warlord blends in with his surroundings effortlessly, an esteemed agent of discord and anarchy with millennia of infiltration experience. Each time an attack is made against this warlord, an unmodified hit roll of 1 to 3 for that attack fails, irrespective of any abilities that the weapon or the model making the attack may have. It's good, it's fine. You know, it's a direct benefit to that model. It's pretty good. Each time an attack is allocated to this warlord while it is receiving the benefits of cover, add an additional 1 to any armor saving throws made against that attack. Again, it's good. It only applies to that model. It's not one of the more characteristic mission parameter style warlord traits, but it's good. Number 3, Headhunter. No target is safe in the sights of this warlord. Enemy commanders, rallying zealots, and specialist officers alike fall to pinpoint headshots, sowing confusion amongst their fragmenting army. Each time you select a target for an attack made with a ranged weapon by this warlord, if that weapon is a rapid-fire or pistol weapon, you can ignore the Look Out Sir rule. That's good. You can re-roll that attack's wound roll. On an unmodified wound roll of 6, the target suffers 1 mortal wound, and in addition to any normal damage. Actually, that can be excellent. You can, with certain combinations of war gear, marks, stratagems, you can make a long-range assassin from one of your characters with that. It is actually really good, and it's especially good against armies that rely on their characters. So like Eldari armies, this is very good. You can use it to snipe Farseers and those that sort of hold the army together. The same is true of Tau and their Eternals, and also of Necrons and their Necron Lords. It's pretty good. Their Phaerons and whatnot. It's pretty damn good. Number 4, Master of Diversion. A venerated tactician, this warlord makes use of feints, false signals, hollow projectors, and a host of strategic diversions in their battle plans. After both sides have deployed, in the resolve pre-battle ability step of the mission you are playing, you can select That's my cat, and she's having a go at another cat outside. Brilliant. Well done, Rufus. Always while I'm recording, eh? Sounds like some sort of demon on the recording. Right, hang on. Rufus, pack it in. Oi! Oi! Come on. Pew. Come on. Okay, there we go. Hopefully she stopped now. Where was I? Yes. After both sides have deployed in the resolve pre-battle ability step of the mission you are playing, you can select up to 3 Alpha Legion units from your army that are wholly within your deployment zone, remove those units from the battlefield, then set them up anywhere on the battlefield that is wholly within your deployment zone and more than 9 inches away from any enemy models. If the mission uses the strategic reserves rules, any of those units can be placed into strategic reserves without having to spend any additional CPs, regardless of how many units are already in strategic reserves. Very familiar with this one. There are lots of rules in the Thousand Sons Codex that allow you to do exactly that. It's excellent. It's very characteristic of the Alpha Legion, and it's really bloody good. It's one of those you are going to want to take. You're going to want one of your characters to have that Warlord trait because it's excellent. It enables you to take control of the battlefield very, very early on, and to reposition your army in reference to what your enemy has done and how they've deployed. It's excellent. It's really good. 5. Cult Leader. This Warlord directs the local cults personally, having trained and honed their skills during countless undercover operations of rebellion and insurgency. In your command phase, you can select one friendly Alpha Legion cultists unit within 9 inches of this Warlord. Until the start of your next command phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, add 1 to the attack's hit roll. Improve the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. I'd say this is probably the weakest and the one with the least diversity, unless you are taking a very cult-heavy army. Then it can have application. It's okay, it's fine in certain types of army, but beyond that, it doesn't really stand up to the others, you know? 6. Covert Control. This Warlord has led innumerable covert actions in every imaginable war zone, always stealing their prize from under their opponent's nose before they realise it. In your command phase, you can select one friendly Alpha Legion core unit within 6 inches of this Warlord. Until the start of your next command phase, that unit can shoot while performing an action without the action failing. That unit has the objective secured ability. If a model in that unit already has this ability, the model counts as one additional model when determining control of an objective marker. That's superb. Situational, but superb. That, like a lot of the Warlord traits, could make the difference with proper manoeuvring and preempting of the enemy's movements. That could make the difference between winning a game and losing a game, depending on where you are in the latter stages. That is excellent. It is really, really good. The Warlord traits, actually, for the Alpha Legion, make up for the situational nature of their Legion trait, and that seems to be the balance in this codex. All of the Legions have that balance. If they have a more situational or weaker Legion trait, they have better Warlord traits and stratagems. It seems to be the way. And the Alpha Legion are all about the Warlord traits and stratagems. They really are. Speaking of stratagems, Conceal, Alpha Legion, these clandestine warriors, that turns up a lot, doesn't it, clandestine? I can disappear at a moment's notice, employing psycho-crystalline camouflage. Try saying that 3 times fast. Distorting warp emitters or silenced servos, coupled with obscuration skills honed over millennia. Use this stratagem at the start of your opponent's shooting phase. Select one Alpha Legion infantry unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, each time an enemy model shoots, if that unit is not the closest eligible target or within 12 inches of that model, then until that shooting phase is resolved, that model cannot target that unit. It's good. It's really good. There's a similar one in the Thousand Sons Codex, and it just means that it's expensive in the current meta with the rarity of command points. It's expensive, but it could make the difference between the annihilation of a key unit and the saving of a key unit, right? Especially, it's very good against the likes of Tau and Eldari and whatnot. Deadly Ambush. The Hydra knows all. Hydra being the symbol of the Alpha Legion. Accessing scan feeds from hidden Legion ships. Interpreting the whispers of warp geists or acting on data from embedded traitors. Few esoteric incursions are unexpected by the Alpha Legion. Use this stratagem at the end of the reinforcement step of your opponent's movement phase. Select one enemy unit that was set up on the battlefield as reinforcements this phase. Until the end of your next turn, each time an Alpha Legion model from your army makes an attack roll against that unit, add 1 to that attack's hit roll. It's good. It's good on a number of levels because it does discourage your enemy from deep striking or placing reinforcements in certain areas of the battlefield. So in very classic Alpha Legion style, it makes you sort of preempt what your enemy is doing. It's pretty good, I've got to say. I like it a lot. It's situational, but used properly, it could be very, very useful indeed. Coils of Deception. Trust not appearances. The swift retreat can coil back in an instant, for the Hydra is always ready to strike. Use this stratagem in your movement phase when an Alpha Legion core unit from your army falls back. That unit is still eligible to shoot this turn, even though it fell back. It's good. It's good. Again, it's one of those that allows you to perform a feint, so you can fall back with a unit and then play this stratagem and shoot. It can be very, very, very good indeed. Forward operatives. The Alpha Legion are as elusive as a shadow. They're operatives stealing forward to occupy advanced positions or swiftly outmaneuver the foe's carefully laid fire lanes. Use this stratagem in the resolve pre-battle ability step of the mission you are playing. Select one Alpha Legion infantry unit from your army. That unit can make a normal move as if it were your movement phase, but must end that move more than 9 inches away from enemy models. You can only use this stratagem once unless you are playing a strike force or onslaught battle, in which case you can use this stratagem twice. It's good. It's really good. Again, it's all about maneuverability. It's about winning the battle before it's even started. That seems to be what the Alpha Legion are all about, especially with regards to the warlord traits and the stratagems. If you're playing these guys, you are going to want to be thinking forward about 2 rounds and preempting what your enemy is going to do and taking into account all of the movements they can possibly make. It's a bit like playing chess, you know? And this plays into that beautifully. Renaissance Infiltration. A wise commander never takes their eyes off the Alpha Legion for a moment, for they will disappear in an instant, biding their time before reappearing for the final strike. Use this stratagem in your movement phase when an Alpha Legion infantry unit from your army that is more than 6 inches away from any enemy models is selected to move. If the mission you are playing uses the strategic reserves rule, place that unit into strategic reserves. That unit cannot arrive from strategic reserves in the same turn it is placed into strategic reserves. So again, it allows you to double bluff. It allows you to sort of bait the enemy away from other units or from certain objectives and then hop away, to just sort of disappear. Again, there are lots of stratagems like this in the Thousand Suns Codex, of which, with which there's a lot of overlap here. It's quite good. Sabotaged Armory. Alpha Legion agents and saboteurs infiltrate enemy targets long before the foe join the battle. Use this stratagem in any phase when an enemy vehicle model is destroyed. If there are any Alpha Legion units from your army on the battlefield, your opponent does not roll to see if that model explodes. It does so automatically. If that model is affected by a rule that says it never explodes, ignore both that rule and this stratagem and roll to see if it explodes as normal. If that model has a wounds characteristic of 9 or less, this stratagem costs 1 command point. If that model has a wounds characteristic of 10 to 19, the stratagem costs 2 points, otherwise it costs 3. It can be very good. It's situational. It's one of those ones that I imagine you would play on the spur of the moment if an enemy vehicle explodes in the right place. But if it does, and you can take advantage of it, you could wreak havoc with that. It could be one of those stratagems. It's very situational, but if it's played well and if it works, it could completely sabotage the enemy's battle plan. It's quite good. Scrambled coordinates, this is the one. Bloody hell, this is the one. Landing coordinates, teleport beacons, or signal emitters are tampered with by infiltrating the enemy's Vox and data networks. Use this stratagem at the start of the reinforcement step of your opponent's movement phase. Select up to 2 Alpha Legion core units from your army that are on the battlefield. Until the end of the phase, enemy units that are set up on the battlefield as reinforcements cannot set up within 12 inches of any of those selected units. If you play it well, if you preempt what your opponent is doing and you maneuver your units across the battlefield, you can use this stratagem to control the entire battlefield. It's really good, especially with armies that have a lot of deep striking units or rely on deep strike. It's very good. Again, it's all about preempting the enemy and predicting what they're going to do, making them do what you want them to do rather than what they want to do. It's very, very good. Veiled Agenda. The ploys and machinations of the Alpha Legion are ineffable to outsiders. The heretics' foes kept guessing or else deliberately fed contradictory disinformation. Use this stratagem after selecting secondary objectives or agendas. If your army contains any units with the Alpha Legion keyword, do not reveal one of your selections to your opponent the first time you score victory points or experience points for that secondary objective or agenda. Reveal it to your opponent. Note that you must still make a record of your selection. We recommend writing this down and concealing it until revealed. That's good too. That's good because it means your opponent doesn't know what they're going to do, what you're going to do, or what you're going to be working towards, so they're not going to be able to react to it. And you can sort of double bluff them. You can make it look like you're trying to perform one objective when in fact you're trying to secure another. It's very good. I like that one a lot, I've got to say. The relics for the Alpha Legion, because their stratagems and warlord traits are so bloody good, they're not all that. They're fine, there's nothing wrong with them, but for the most part, they're not all that. And again, that's where the balance comes in. The Alpha Legion are really, I mean, they are one of the best armies in the game, actually, for taking control of the battle in terms of the mission and objectives. One of the best armies in the entire game. And that is where their strength lies. They're not really about the relics and whatnot, but they have some interesting ones. Blades of the Hydra. Ever since the demon prince Garaul of the Nine-Sundered Souls was bound inside this oversized chainsword, the blade has been a fiendish tool of destruction. Those with a will strong enough to control its multiple thirsting personas can cause the sawtooth blade to shimmer into not one but several swords that gnaw and gnash with an immortal hunger. Cool, right? That's a lot of fun. Would be fun to model as well. So this replaces a chainsword. It's just a weapon. It's a weapon with a special ability. It's quite good. The ones that stand out, most of them are like this. The ones that stand out are the ones that feed into the strengths of the Alpha Legion. So things like the Hydra's Wail. So this sophisticated jamming device is corrupted by the ruinous powers. A burst of directed scrap code infiltrates the Vox networks and communications devices of the enemy, rendering strategic planning null and void. Once per battle after your opponent uses a stratagem excluding command reroll, the bearer can use this relic. If it does so until the end of the battle, the CP cost your opponent must pay to use that stratagem again is increased by 1. That's amazing, especially under the current rules in the current meta with regards to command points where they are so precious. That is amazing. If you play it against a stratagem that your opponent really relies on, then that is fantastic. An absolutely brilliant piece of work. Beyond that, there's not much. The other ones that really stand out are things like the icon of the Hydra cult. So this unassuming, apparently meanly finished sigil hides a powerful device beneath its serpentine exterior. Within its coils lies unknown cloaking technology that emits a gloomy pall to hide the vilest of deeds from the most vigilant of sentinels. Alpha Legion model only, this relic can be given to a cultist's unit, and that's what makes it interesting. Icon of the Hydra cult, Aura. While a friendly Alpha Legion cultist's unit is within 6 inches of the bearer, each time a ranged attack targets that unit, if the attacker is more than 12 inches away, the target is treated as having the benefits of dense cover against that attack. So it's a very, very good relic for a cult-heavy army, and the Alpha Legion do make heavy use of indentured cultists or psycho-indoctrinated cultists, so that can be very useful given the nature of the army you're playing. The Alpha Legion traditionally have always been an army that have been given a little bit of short shrift in the rules, but since their popularity has escalated as a result of the recent novels and fiction regarding them, they've been given a hell of a lot of attention. I think they're the sleeper hit of the Codex, I really do. They're not as overtly brilliant as the Iron Warriors, but if you play them correctly and if you play into their strengths, i.e. taking control of the mission parameters within the battle, feinting and preempting your opponent, that's how to play them, and they are going to do the business every time. They are quite incredible, actually, in that regard. And for battles in 9th Ed, they're excellent. I can see the Alpha Legion featuring competitively quite a lot in days to come. And beyond that, they're just loads of fun. They're these covert operatives that operate to these inscrutable, insidious agendas, and you never know quite what they're up to or quite what they're doing. It's really cool, and their background now. I was never that interested in them when they first made the scene. They were certainly one of my least favourite of the Traitor Legions, but now, thanks to Dan Abnett, thanks to the people who've written about them, they are far, far more interesting. And I've got to say, I really like their presentation now. In this codex, they're stunning. They're absolutely stunning.